Watch what's approaching, the supreme moment. Reality striking closer than it seems, don't it? Go ahead, it's for the taking if you want it. If not, the dream dies and you'll be forever haunted. Then confront it.
What's good, and welcome back to another session. A lot of data download news did drop last night. Unfortunately, I was a little bit busy working, so just catching up on some of the information along with the free-to-play LR Babidi and Dabura. There's also the new stage of Infinite Dragon Ball history, which seems to be centered around the Youth and World Tournament, so that's part of the missions for that particular stage. So I would assume some of the stages are alongside that theme. However, I really did want to cover the details and breakdown of the upcoming Chain Battle mode. This is one of those big ticket items that are coming up on Dokkan Battle JP right now, so I did want to center the first discussion around that. So definitely credit to Datago4 for providing the compiled list of data available based on the chain battle information. So I kind of briefly went through this information. However, it's kind of like I just glanced through it, and I'll pretty much be reading the details alongside with you right now. So again, this is the chain battle mode that is coming up on JP pretty soon. Again, it's similar to a combination of the traditional Battlefield, what we have right now, versus the Battlefield Season number 1, where it's just kind of like all over the place a little bit. So it is coming. It's coming out on May 1st at 5 o'clock JP time. So depending on your time zone differences, that'll slightly be different, but it'll be lasting a week up until May 8th. Now, basically, the way this is set up, and the general rule right here is the chain battle is set up where enemies and allies don't necessarily have HP. It's dependent on receiving damage, and basically you don't have the option of a game over. It's basically dependent fully on how much damage you apply to the enemy. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the information here. So this is basically the battle before battle prep, our team setups section, where you do have battle characters based on HP, attack, and defense, and then the super attack levels, and you also do have supporters and connectors. Each of these characters do have HP, attack, and defense stats. However, supporters and connectors, they do have like the categories, typing, and link skills that do apply in terms of a generalized full functioning setup, or a fluid team, I should say. You do have basically criteria that you do have bonus damage applied toward enemies as well, and then you do have advantageous categories that do apply more damage as well. Now, in terms of the supporters or support battle, basically the way this is set up is you basically select your characters based on categories, types, link skill, and then you do have basically a condition where you do have to select the supporters pretty quickly. Otherwise, you do have a limitation on that. So let's go into the support battle setting and talk through it a little bit. Let's see. サポートバトルでは敵の攻撃を食い止めるサポーターを3体選択します。So basically, you can pick 3 units that can serve as a supporter type deal. For a total 8 supporters, it's going to apply like categories, typings, link skill. So I'm guessing like you can technically pick 3, but maybe your friend and whatnot will apply for that as well. Or basically you have an option of 8 of these supporters, but you can only pick 3, basically is what this is saying. So this is going to help you basically stop the enemy attacks, basically. It seems like that's what really the supporting type function is on here. Ashidome is basically like drag their feet, I guess is a direct translation, but basically like slow their offense, I guess is probably the best way to put it. Let's go ahead and take a look at more of these details. So you do have the battle characters that actually do apply the damage, and then like the supporters are more like, I guess in a way, defense. It almost seems like their damage applied from a supporting role is limited or lesser than what the battle characters can apply, so that is pretty much the deal with that. In terms of like the selection process, you do have well, not just a selection process, but based on what I'm reading here, they have a limited time for the support battles. Basically, 10秒以内に3体を選択できなかった場合は自動的にランダムに3体選択されます。So if you don't select 3 units within 10 seconds, it's automatically going to pick the 3 units. So it is a little bit like a compressed time selection, but you do have to pick your units within 10 seconds. Okay, and then let's see. Basically, if 5 seconds, basically if within the 10 seconds, if it goes beyond 5 seconds, it's gonna highlight some of the supporters basically. So that's another indicator of selecting the the units for this. I think the rest of this is basically talking about the categories, typing, link skills. It's basically telling you which one have the most in common, so it'll make your decision making a little bit easier here. All right, let's go ahead and go into the participation criteria and units that can participate basically. So right here it's talking about units that can be included. So you have a super type at the minimum Z awakened units, 10 units, and then extreme counterpart Z awakened versions, at least 10 units as well. So based on this information, you can only include units that have been Z awakened. However, with that being said, R units, SR units, SSRs, you can include them as long as they're Z awakened. All right. Let's keep going. Alright, this is talking about the battle energy, about the consumption of battle energy, I should say. So traditionally speaking, ACT or stamina is used whenever running through events. However, in the chain battle mode, you do have a new thing called battle energy that basically gets depleted. You can have up to a maximum of 5 in reserve. And then for every 3 hours, it'll recover 1, I guess, gauge of the battle energy. All right. If you pretty much use all of your battle energy and it goes down to 0, you can use 1 Dragonstone to replenish one of the battle energies. So, if using stones is not a problem and you want to go through it as quickly as possible, you can certainly use Dragonstone to recover some of the battle energy as well. Okay, on this one, let's see. また一度使用したサポーターとコネクタを再度使用可能になります。流石消費によるバトルエナジー回復が1日に Okay, so there is a max of how many Dragonstones you can use. You can use up to 5 per day. Looks like the takeaway from that one. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the other functions. Like the battle character here is basically talking about this particular character. The battle character is the one that is directly going to be battling against the enemy here. So depending on the team's chain power, which is dependent on links, the support, and categories, stuff like that, it's gonna affect or impact the total amount of damage you can apply to the enemy. There looks like there is a one of the parameters. Basically, if the chain power exceeds a certain amount, you do have the explosive chain positioning, I guess, where if the support battle is able to kind of stop the enemy, the battle character will be at full power, and then it'll greatly increase the amount of damage applied to the enemy as well. Looks like this is a footnote saying that the connector units that are assigned connectors can't be assigned the battle character selection. Okay, so moving on, let's talk about the chain power. So what is chain power? So what this essentially is the combination of the supporter and connectors impacting how much of the team overall power it has. And this is dependent on category, typing, and links as well. So again, based on the setup you have within the categories, typings, and links, within the supporters and connectors, it's going to impact your overall chain power as a team. You do, again, have the explosive chain power, I guess we'll just call it, where you do have a greatly impacted way of applying more damage depending on super type or extreme types. Chain power, basically, if it exceeds a certain amount based on the overall team power or chain power, you are able to apply a lot more in damage than in a normal state. That's probably the best way to put it. This is also dependent on if the support battle is able to stop the enemy as well. Okay, so this is basically the supporter section. So in order to play this chain battle, you do have to borrow certain supporting friends as well. So like super type 10 units, and then extreme types are also 10 units. Basically, this is talking about the the borrowed supporter. 他のプレイヤーがチェーンバトルをプレイする際に使われます。So basically, it's related to like other excuse me excuse me for that. It's related to basically other players that are using set units on the chain battle setting. So it's dependent on if they actually set them up as the supporter. So looks like you can only borrow one of these supporters per day, similar to how the friend system works currently when running through your normal events and whatnot. So let's see. 流石を消費してバトルエナジーを回復するか、0時を過ぎると、また同じサポーターがかかる。So basically, you can only use one per day, but I guess you can also spend dragon stones or use battle energies in order to refresh that, and you can actually use those friendlies against or supporters again. Okay, so a lot of information, but we'll just keep going along. This is a section for the connectors. So connectors look like basically the supporting functions like within the main unit, I guess. It's probably the best way to explain it. Let's see, it is dependent on categories, typing, and links. Let's see, サポーターとの一種、数が多いほどチェーンパワー。So it's almost like it's referring to a combination of the supporting role and connectors. So it's more or less just linking units better up to the main battle card unit or battle character is probably the biggest takeaway for that one. Again, I'm not really an expert in the field by any means. It's still a new thing that just got released with additional information, so there probably will be corrections at some point regarding the matter. So this one is based on the Tokko character. So these are like advantageous units against the enemy, basically dependent on typing and categories and stuff like that. So obviously the damage applied will be a lot higher than some of the other units. It's gonna be highlighted in red as an indicator, so you will be able to easily tell. And then that's based on like the advantageous unit itself against the enemy. Now if it's an advantageous category, it'll be highlighted in blue. So that'll be an indicator to find out which units are proper for that. You do have basically high scores and rankings dependent on that. The high score itself is fully dependent on the one-time battle damage amount. So basically per battle, the amount of damage applied. All right, and then you'll get the rewards based on the completion of the event itself. Alright, there's also a thing called the battle log. So I think this is probably, based on what I'm reading, it looks like, just kind of like accepting or declining friend requests on the chain battle side and stuff like that. Not necessarily anything that important, but there is, navigation guidelines onto how to get it. So I was reading this earlier, and this is actually pretty important here. The nice function, right, is basically something you can press and type in to the friend or whatever, and then the friends can otherwise send that back to you. The problem is guests, you won't be able to do that for guests, and the reason why I'm highlighting this is basically if you send a nice to one of your friends, you do get one of those items that you can exchange in the Baba shop for the treasure boxes. So the same applies for if a friend does that to you. So this is actually important in terms of getting some of the items in order to get some of the rewards out of that as well. Okay, alright, we'll just skip through and cover some of the additional information here. So this is basically the flow of the chain battle itself. Alright, so basically just step 1, press start. Step 2 is basically picking the advantageous character, and then picking a friend for the support. They have their preset functions or whatever, so you basically pick out of the group there. Step 3, basically you pick out a compatible supporter and connector, and then start the battle. And then basically just the enemies are going to show up randomly. It states specifically that it's random in terms of like the randomly show, like basically your allies show up randomly. So I thought it was the enemy initially, but it's referring to the allies itself. Okay, so these are more like tips and tricks based on how to apply the most damage as possible based on the data available currently, based on the latest download. So again, this section is just highlighting the characters and supports. Of course, for the supporters, categories, typings, link skill. The ones that have the most shared links or shared items compared to the battle character is going to serve as the most beneficial. This one has like the top 5 units that have like the most categories, so that can kind of be a way to tell which units are better than others, stuff like that. Okay. Alright, let's see. Nokori jikan ga oi to damage up. So basically, the more time you have, basically the more damage you're going to be able to apply. So of course, if the remaining time drops below half, then what is it saying here? 残り時間半分になるとサポーターを1体選択したときに相性が良いサポーターが、強調表示されサポーターの選択簡単 So this is basically just highlighting that if the remaining time is less than half, it's going to highlight some of the compatible supporters, so it's going to make it a little bit easier to make a decision making here. However, again, like I was saying earlier, if the remaining time goes below half, you're basically not going to be able to apply as much damage, so you do have to keep mind of that. So you do have to pick out your support as quickly as possible is basically what that is. Alright, this is how the ranking system works. You can do this every day, so I guess it refreshes every day. Obviously you have the pyramid setup of the 1% top tier, and then all the way down to like the bottom tier levels. It's hard to say how this is going to go depending on how things are, if it's a local group or overall ranking, stuff like that. I have no idea, but we'll see as time goes on. So this is basically the item you can get for exchange to the treasure boxes, and you do have like various goodies that you can certainly get out of that, so that is definitely important to note. And the last thing is based on the missions. I'm not going to cover each of these. I might just end up putting this in a pinned comment, but you do have various rewards based on the criteria and whatnot. So I'll probably end up leaving a comment on the video itself, just providing the details for the translations on the missions and rewards that apply. So I know this was a little bit dragged out video, but I wanted to cover as much details as I possibly could in terms of like the overall setup of the upcoming chain battles. So again, I do appreciate this from Datago4. He definitely did make my life a lot easier by compiling the information, so definitely appreciate that. Hopefully you guys found this video helpful, and as always, I appreciate you watching, and I guess I will catch you next time.